Hey guys, I haven't made a video in a while. So last year the internet blew up when another traditionally attractive sports guy came out of the closet. This time it was Colton Underwood, a football player and repeated contestant on The Bachelor. Shortly after he came out, it got leaked that there was going to be a Netflix series documenting his coming out process, and that gay Olympian Gus Kemworthy was going to be acting as his gay guide, whatever that means. And I think the LGBT community online kind of all reacted to this unanimously with an eye roll, myself included. I don't think any of us were necessarily shocked that somebody who looks like Colton and has as many privileges as he does would be getting an opportunity like this. Can you imagine being paid to come out? I think we're all pretty tired of how mainstream media tends to pick the most heteronormative of us to put in the spotlight, like LGBT people who fit like seamlessly into what's already on mainstream straight, TV. So seeing another cookie cutter representation of a gay man to us feels a little annoying. Colton Underwood is a traditionally attractive 6'3", straight acting, muscular, square jawed, blonde gay man with Christian values. And the idea of choosing Gus Kemworthy, an equally traditionally attractive, blonde, square-jawed, straight-acting, muscular gay man, being his gay guide, well, it sounds like kind of a shit show, doesn't it? I mean, what does Gus Kemworthy even know about being gay? Didn't he just come out in like 2015? Oh, I guess that's a long time ago. So old. But still, what would he necessarily know about being gay that he could teach Colton? Surely we can find a more qualified role model. So back when it leaked that this show was being made, I had a lot of initial assumptions. Gus Kemworthy is pretty known for kind of hanging out in exclusive groups, like a lot of friends that look pretty much exactly like him. So framing him as a gay guy definitely gave me concerns. I mean, what would the show even be? Is it going to be Gus helping Colton pick out a neoprene harness and timing his next dose of GHB? So the 6-part series dropped earlier this month, and due to my annoying see both sides nature, I thought that I should watch it to see if it's what I expected. Maybe there's something good in it. Maybe it's not bad. It's possible. It was possible. It was not possible. Although Colton is being paid for this show, and it's very easy to think of it as like a cash grab, I do have to wonder how they're going to tackle this. If it will have something to offer for people who might be in a similar situation to Colton. Like maybe Colton's experience could resonate with some people out there. Look, I just don't want to be a bitter gay, okay? I want to have an open mind. Now, before I go into the show, let's do a brief background about Colton Underwood and who the fuck he is. So Colton's main claim to fame comes from The Bachelor, where he first competed in 2018 on The Bachelorette. He also made a brief appearance on something called Bachelor in Paradise before eventually being cast as The Bachelor in 2019. So yes, Colton has been on The Bachelor 3 times. Before The Bachelor, Colton was a professional football player. Now, I don't know anything about football, but I did try to look up Colton's involvement in football. And it seems like he was on a bunch of teams for like very short amounts of time, kind of got traded around, and I think maybe he never played an actual NFL game. I'm not sure. It seems like he maybe didn't. And then he quietly retired at the age of 25 after getting a shoulder injury. Like, I don't know much, but that doesn't sound like a great career to me. During season 23 of The Bachelor, where he was, in fact, The Bachelor, he ended up choosing a girl named Cassie to be like his partner, wife. I don't know. How does The Bachelor work? Do they have to get married? He dated Cassie for about 2 years before she broke up with him, and he began stalking her, sending her anonymous text messages, and apparently put a tracking device on her car. And this all resulted in Cassie having to file a restraining order. Okay, so this is a rough start. It's kind of a big thing to stalk someone and put a tracking device on their car. And it's really confusing, actually, since now we know Colton was gay the whole time and wasn't even attracted to her. So why would a gay man, attach himself so much to a straight relationship to the point of abusing the person when they try to leave? We'll circle back to that. So obviously Colton received a lot of backlash in the media for this, as he should have. And it's kind of interesting and I think telling that despite all of this, Colton was still able to get a TV show on Netflix about coming out. It is, of course, something they try to address on the show. Like, how could you not? But apparently Cassie actually has some kind of contract which stops Colton from talking about it in detail.
Legally, I can't talk about it.
So a lot of the conversations around it kind of feel like they're dancing around what actually happened and like not going very deep. They're generally just not very satisfying. So the series Coming Out Colton is a 6-part documentary. Each episode is 30 minutes long and deals with a different aspect of his life and coming out process. They're titled Family, Football, Friends, Church, The Public, and The Past and the Future. Already I can tell I'm not going to relate to this experience very much. The first episode begins with Colton and Gus having a conversation at a fancy ski resort, which to me already feels like starting off on the wrong foot. I'm already trying really hard to force myself to feel some empathy for Colton here, and an immediate flaunting of wealth is not making that easy. Anyway, as he's talking to Gus, it occurs to me that the show is actually taking place before Colton comes out to his family. And I'm kind of like, how do you get a show on Netflix about coming out if you haven't come out already? Like, did you pitch this? Were you approached? Like, how did this get made logistically? Obviously, if this footage of him coming out to his parents is genuine, then he must have had all of this arranged beforehand. Did he come out to the producers first? So I did some digging on this and I found an interview with him on Logo.
Amazing producers pulled me aside and were just like, hey, if you ever have, like, basically being like, wink, wink, nod, nod, like, we know, but we're not going to push you. But, like, if you're ever ready. We had a conversation and all of a sudden they were just like, you know, do you want to document this?
As someone who's come out of the closet myself, I find it really hard to imagine being in this situation. So basically the producers figured out he was gay and made the offer to him to have his coming out documented. In the interview, he's actually asked why he thinks people like him and Gus are given this opportunity.
Why is your story important?
I just never thought about comparing traumas or comparing like people's stories. Like, I was in a position where I was already in front of cameras.
Yeah.
So this really is the privilege in action, right? Like, Colton, why do you think it is you were already in front of cameras? And Colton does acknowledge his privilege, like, throughout the show repeatedly. They kind of make it a point for him to say privilege a lot. But most of the time, even though he's acknowledging it, he's still fully taking advantage of it, right? Like, he's still kind of abusing the privilege. So it doesn't really mean much. Like, should you really have this show? Is it really necessary? Do you think maybe you should lay low for a little bit longer since, you know, your beard has a restraining order against you for, you know, stalking harassment? It's also worth noting that one of the producers of Coming Out Colton is Jeff Jenkins, and he was behind the series I Am Kate.
I think it's good that I'm a Republican.
So since Colton and the producers were able to get this all in order before anybody in his life knew that he was gay, we do actually get to see him come out to his family members. And this has the potential to be interesting. Like, they even try to play it up by having him coming out to different people be like cliffhangers of the episodes.
I guess basically what I'm trying to tell you is I'm gay.
But of course, it ends up falling really flat. For one, they all know they're being filmed. So how much of a negative reaction can you really give? Like, it's 2021. They can't do the whole, I have no son thing on TV. And secondly, I don't honestly get the vibe that any of them actually had a problem with it.
You were so nervous to come out to him, he wears a choker necklace.
I mean, look at Colton's dad. Is this not a Fort Lauderdale daddy? Can you not imagine this hat with an embroidered Nasty Pig logo? Within a few episodes, Colton's entire family seems pretty supportive and on board, which kind of speaks to another privilege that he has. Like, I don't know if this is necessarily what Colton expected from his family, but a lot of people don't get that reaction. Now, the episode called Football is where I really get lost. Maybe there's some middle America stuff I don't understand here as a Canadian, but Colton, as a 29-year-old man, seems to be very attached to his high school experience.
My next hurdle is my high school coach.
This episode, Colton goes back to his high school to come out to his old coach, which I can't imagine is necessary.
I've always looked up to him. I've always wanted to make him happy too, you know?
I don't know about you, but if I was gonna go back to my high school teacher and be like, Mr. Blackmore, I'm gay, he would definitely be like, I'm sorry, who are you?
In the closet and you are not allowed to come out. So many things that, like, you've taught me as a man and as a competitor and as a person. It started here. I looked up to you. You were my support system. You were my everything. It always hurt more when I heard them.
Colton even seems to remember what locker was his.
You remember your locker?
Right here.
That is insane to me. You could not waterboard that information out of me. I can't remember what floor of the building my locker was on. So is this sports culture? Is this American culture? Is this what happens if you don't come out of the closet until you're almost 30? You just reminisce about when you were a teenager? Like, I can't relate. This episode has a scene where he meets up with some other openly gay athletes, including NFL player Michael Sam, who came out in 2014. And I personally think it's a little telling how the spotlight is on Colton and Gus here. I'm sure Michael Sam is the one here who has a much more interesting and important story to tell. A story that would resonate with, more marginalized, less privileged groups of people. He's also just a much more accomplished NFL player. He actually played in games. Episode 4 is called Church. And here's where you really get a glimpse into just how religious Colton really is.
But one thing I'm not willing to give up and one thing that I'm not willing to sacrifice is my faith. I grew up in a Catholic church. I went to a Catholic grade school. I served as an altar boy. I attended Mass sometimes 5 days a week. I just remember God being at the forefront of my childhood and of my life. Then God's got me. Jeremiah 20:11. I want to be a man of faith. Like, my relationship with God, sorry, I'm getting emotional. Homosexuality is a sin, and I remember, like, the first time I watched gay porn, I, like, dropped to my knees and prayed immediately, and I was like, don't ever let me do that again. Like, don't let me get away with this.
I would have gotten away with it all, too. You and that dog hadn't come along.
It's at this point that I realize my assumption that Gus is going to turn Colton into a circuit gay is way off. I mean, I still think it could happen, but he's years and years of shame away from this. Where Colton is currently at is more along the speed of having a basketball date with his fellow altar boys, where they discuss whether or not he's going to burn in hell for all eternity. In this scene, he comes out to his friends from church, and they sort of do that fake acceptance thing, where it's like, hate the sinner, not the sin.
If we're trying to be like Jesus, bro, we love you. Like, it doesn't matter whether we agree with that or not.
It's like we don't see eye to eye on that necessarily, right?
Every single one of us are sinners.
Which I hope in 2021 we can all recognize as bullshit, right? Like, that's not acceptance. You literally think I'm going to hell. So I do think this episode touches on, something important, and it's like how religious gays deal with coming out. It's not something I personally relate to or care too much about, but I do recognize that I would say most of the closeted gays around the world are closeted because of religion. Colton seems to be holding out hope that his church will accept his sexuality, and he even calls his pastor to get approval. You can guess how this conversation went. So I do feel some empathy for Colton in this scene, because I can clearly see how much his religion means to him, like how lost he feels without it. But, a huge part of me is still an atheist edgelord from 2009 who says, leave the church, you moron, what the fuck? Just leave the church, it's all fake. I was actually kind of impressed by Colton's brother, who seems to agree with me.
But you can still give money, right? Or do they give your money back to you? Have you donated?
Yeah?
Did you get his money back?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
But Colton's a little bit far gone on this issue. He has multiple religious tattoos. In the end, he's kind of just wandering around to different LGBT-friendly churches, trying to find somebody who will take him in. And then he settles on this idea that he can be a man of God without necessarily going to church, I guess.
And that's when my relationship with God became stronger than ever. You can be whatever you want to be, and God's still gonna love you.
Like, okay, man, do whatever you want. Good luck. Eventually, we get to the part of the series that aligns with Colton's famous coming out on Good Morning America. There comes a point in every gay's life where he has to come out on Good Morning America. It's a very unrelatable episode. Like they fly him to New York where he gets to wait at this fancy penthouse while he waits to be interviewed. So they show the reaction to Colton coming out.
I'm gay, and
You're gay.
They show him looking through social media on the day it happened.
You're trending on Twitter.
really?
And somehow, Colton seems to be surprised by the backlash he's getting from people who are bringing up the stalking allegations.
Reminder, Colton being gay doesn't excuse his abusive behavior towards Cassie.
I'm not gonna lie, I was not expecting like this.
And that strikes me as very strange and naive. Like, did he think they were just gonna forget? Of course that's what they're talking about. It was just so recent at the time, too, and he had never really been able to address it because of Cassie's, like, contract or whatever. I don't know why he thought that was resolved for people. So in the series, they do talk about this situation a bit, and they explain it basically as Colton seeing this relationship with Cassie as his last chance at being straight.
I knew that if I let her go, I would have to deal with me. And I didn't want to, and I wasn't ready.
Like, when she broke up with him, he was like, shit, I'm not going to be able to trick another woman. So he thought he better do what he can to hold on to her. Which, just to be clear, you can't do that. You definitely can't follow them around until they change their mind, even if you pick them on The Bachelor. Like, I buy why he did it, but I don't have any empathy for that. Like, the blatant disregard for her and how she probably felt pretty unsafe, having a man, like, follow her around and stalk her with a tracking device. It's off-putting, Colton. I'm a little off-put by that. And I do think it's pretty likely that something like this would stop the career of, like, a less privileged person in its tracks. But Colton gets a rehabilitation. Colton gets a TV show. And I think that is very much worth criticizing. Coming Out Colton, for me, is mostly just a display of privilege. There's definitely kernels of valuable content in there that could help some people, particularly deeply closeted religious people. Although the show doesn't look at the church through a very critical lens, and basically just says that it's great to be gay and Christian. Like, maybe David Archuleta, the mascot of Salesforce, might have been helped by this show. But these people, they have a long way to go. The show very much feels like it's made for straight people. Like, it is the most heteronormative framing of being gay I have ever seen. Like, Colton is a man of faith who has Jesus tattoos and wants to settle down and become a father as soon as possible. Personally, I just don't really see it as a show that needed to be made. There are so many better resources. For example, HBO has We're Here, which stars actually marginalized members of the LGBT community who are famous because of their talent, and not because they have an acute angled jawline. And the people they help in that show are people who don't have a lot of advantages. People who wouldn't be cast on The Bachelor. I mean, We're Here goes around to tiny towns around America, and most of the people are stuck in those towns because they don't have the funds to leave. It just feels like a much more relatable show than an Olympian and The Bachelor discussing how hard their life is while skiing. I will say that most of my initial concerns about, Gus and Colton just, doing affluent muscle gaze stuff, like, that didn't happen. And I don't really think it's ever going to happen for Colton because, he's actually not that kind of gay. He's so heteronormative that really all he wants to do is, like, settle down with a partner immediately, have a child, and go to church. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I don't recommend you watch this show on Netflix. I don't think you're going to get much out of it unless you're deeply closeted and you really want to be a dad and live in the suburbs of Colorado. And, like, yeah, that's about it. I think I did come across bitter in this video, actually.
Like, actually conversate about it, you know what I mean?
I think it's converse. Huh? Just say talk.